Hello and welcome to this week's BizSmart Lunch and Learn webinar. Our weekly webinars are aimed to provide advice and share knowledge amongst business owners. And if you would like to keep up to date on our latest webinars, please make sure you follow us on SlideShare or subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can also access all of our resources for business owners by finding us on our BizSmart app. Our presenter today joining me is BizSmart Select member Stu Avis. So before we start our webinar, can I ask you all to use the question mark function on your screen and post any questions that you may have for Stu, and he will do his best to answer them all at the end of the session. Thank you, Stu. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Caroline. So good afternoon, everyone. So this afternoon, we're going to talk about the 6 elements. So every business needs marketing resources. It might be a business card, it might be a Facebook page, it might be a full-blown website, or a whole suite of marketing channels and tools. And as a graphic designer, it's not just my job to deliver the designs in whatever format is most appropriate, but to actually understand why you want the designs and the pieces that you want, so that what I design is fit for purpose and actually helps you market your business effectively. And at least once every 6 weeks or so, I have a conversation that says something like this: "Hi, Stu, I need a flyer for my business." Well, that's great. Well, why? Well, because I do. All right, so who's it aimed at? What's the purpose of it? It's aimed at everyone. Those answers are kind of fine in and of themselves, but they don't really help me understand where this flyer or this website or this email campaign fits into kind of what you're wanting to do with your business. And while I understand that actually, all of us do what we do because we're good at it, and for some, marketing can be a strange and alien thing. So I've learned that actually my primary role isn't a designer. It's almost kind of more of a navigator to help clients navigate their way through the mire of marketing resources that are out there, and to actually come up with something that's really going to work. So there's so much more to design than just placing words and images on the page, as people often say, oh, it's just making it look pretty. So what we're going to be doing in this webinar is looking at the thought process that goes behind the design of any piece of marketing, from a business card to a full-blown website, email campaign, whatever it might be, and the 6 elements that go to build that resource that makes it powerful and effective. So what I hope you get out of it this afternoon, what I hope to learn for you, is that you would understand the things that maybe you could think about before you go to a designer or marketing agency and go, hi, we need a whatever it might be. Because the more you understand about why you want something and all that kind of stuff, it's going to make it more effective, and make the designer's job, whether it's me or anyone else, that much better and that much easier as well. So the first question I always ask is why? Why do you want this marketing resource? Is it for sales? Are you looking at a lead generation tool to actually grow your business? Is it about brand awareness, actually getting your name and your product or your service or the brand creative out there? Is it purely informational? So it might be to existing clients or existing people, letting them know maybe of a new change of address, or a new product or new service, or something important that's kind of happening. So you need to understand kind of what the purpose of that piece is, because if you understand what the purpose is, you will understand what you want the outcome to be, and therefore you will evaluate it on its success. So several years ago, I ran a full-blown marketing campaign for a charity, and it covered the website, branding, social media, video, photography, the works. But the critical thing is they use it as a brand awareness tool, not to gain more supporters. So we had to evaluate it on that criteria based on actually how much extra revenue they got. So when someone wanted to start talking about, kind of what's been the return on investment, that was actually the wrong question to ask. So if you don't understand why you want a piece of marketing resource, you'll never know what specific result you're looking for, and therefore you will not really be clear on how to measure those results. And it's really important to measure the results of the marketing activity that you undertake, because it may be about, am I spending my time wisely? Am I spending my money wisely? Am I aiming for the right people? And actually, always analysing and measuring and evaluating is really critical, and I don't think we do that enough. So if you understand why, you can evaluate much better, and you'll know what went well and actually what you might want to improve upon, or what you would tweak for the next time you did that thing. So once you've kind of understood sort of why you want it, what impact you want it to have, what outcome, and how you're going to kind of process and evaluate it, the next thing to do is to understand who you're aiming it at. I'm a member of a couple of networking organisations, and every week we get told, don't ask for anyone, ask for someone specific. So it's very easy to aim a flyer, let's say, at kind of everyone, but you're not going to hit everyone. So the more specific you can be in the wording that you use and all that kind of stuff, then the better. So who is this piece aimed at? Is it aimed at existing clients, or a brand new market or an audience, people that maybe have never heard of you before? Is it aimed at businesses, i.e. it's B2B, or is it aimed at consumers, B2C? Is it aimed at suppliers, or is it aimed at referral partners? Because the type of audience you're aiming it at will not only dictate what you say, the words that you use, the pictures that you use, but also the tone of voice. So if it's to existing clients letting them know of a new product or a new service, you're going to be slightly more friendly, slightly more informal, because you've got that relationship. People know you, they like you, they trust you, and you can kind of build on that. Whereas if it's a new market or a new audience, you might just have to be a little bit more formal in the kind of tone of voice. Don't lose your character, obviously, but actually you might kind of want to just be a little bit more kind of hesitant about being all chitty and chatty and kind of chilled. So actually understanding who you're aiming it at will not just impact what you say, but how you say it. And that's really important, it's that tone of voice. So one of the services I offer, for instance, is content writing. So I know some really great content writers as well that we sort of, that I work really well with. And whenever I'm briefing them, their question is, who is it aimed at? Because obviously that will really impact kind of how we say what we say instead of just words on a page. So that's why, and that's who. So there you go. If you understand who your target audience is, not only the design will be more appropriate, but the tone of voice will be more appropriate too. So once we've understood why and we understand who, we then kind of get onto the how. So you may think that actually people come to you and say, I need a flyer. Okay, that's fine. I need a website, or I need whatever it might be, a brochure. But actually for me, this comes third in the list, not the first thing. They always like to take a couple of steps back. So how are you going to say it? What words and images have you got? Do you need to write that content? Do you need to source those images from somewhere? How much content have you got? I was once given 1,500 words for a 2-sided A5 flyer. It is just inordinate amounts. It's about sort of probably 1,000 words well over kind of what we'd actually normally put into that kind of design. So you need to think about kind of what you've got in terms of the content. So once I understand what how you're going to say it in terms of the words, the look, the feel, maybe based on things that you've kind of got before, that's then when I can sit down and then begin to work on the design, the actual practical design stuff. So the right format, is it a website, an email, a flyer, a poster, a brochure? And what size is it? Because size is, it says, but size actually matters, because there are pros and cons to an A5 flyer. Whereas actually maybe going to an A5 square or an A4 square, or a sort of a 4-page folded A5, as A4, or it might be something else. It's actually going to be a better format. And also, if thinking about kind of posting something, it might need to be smaller because it's cheaper to email, or to mail out, and I'll sort of cover that a little bit later. So once you've looked at the why and the who, then we can look at, well, what's the best way of getting this content into people's hands in terms of the look, the feel, the words, the images, the design, the format, the size, all those kind of things. So that's really kind of where I come in. And it's really important to actually be able to kind of work with a good designer or a good marketing agency to help you think through, well, two-sided A5 flyer is fine, but have you thought about this? Because you can do so much more with this, and it's not going to be any more necessarily to kind of print or to design or whatever. So once you've understood kind of the background and the context, then you can think about actually the design and the content as well. So we're kind of moving quite swiftly on with this, which is good. So once you've kind of got the why, the who, the how, then obviously it's the what. The most frustrating thing I probably see almost every week, maybe, is people send me content and there's no call to action. What do you want people to do with the information you are giving them? So is it to click? So if it's an email campaign or on a website, it might be to click here, do this thing. If it's on a flyer, it might be call us or visit our website in a specific page. It might be to scan a new QR code. It might be to reply to an email. People need to understand what they are going to do with the information you're giving them, because if they're interested, they need to know how best to take action. And in my experience, if people don't understand what you want them to do with the information you give them, they're highly unlikely to take the action, no matter how rich they might be, because they've got too many steps to jump through to go, oh, okay, so I now need to go on their website to find a phone number, so I want to talk to someone, and you know what, I can't be bothered. And we're all inherently lazy people. Maybe it's just me, but I want the most information with the least amount of effort. So please, when you're thinking about content, get that call to action, because that's really, really important and critical. And I will not design something if it doesn't have a clear call to action, because it's just a waste of time and effort and money. And we don't want that. These things need to be powerful and effective. So that's the what, the kind of the call to action. So this is when. When does this piece need to be designed by? Is there a tight deadline? Is there times? Is a content time sensitive? Sorry. I once had this is kind of a worst case scenario. So some years ago, I may have mentioned it on a webinar before. I had a phone call from someone. It's a Wednesday morning, and we rebranded about 6 months ago. We're doing a show, and so we need to rebrand all our marketing material. So we've got a 28-page brochure. We've got 2 different A5, two-sided A5 flyers. We need new business cards. We've got 3 pull-up banners that we need designing. We want to get some pens or some mugs or some kind of promotional resource done. How possible is it? I said, well, that's fine. When's the show? I went, Friday. This Friday, as in 2 days' time. And they went, yes. I'm good, but I'm not that good. And even if the stuff was designed and signed off, the chance of getting all of that printed and delivered inside 2 days is going to be a long shot. We all leave things last minute. We all suddenly realise that, oh my goodness, suddenly the months have gone by. But please try not to leave things last minute. It's in your best interest, because it often costs far more to get stuff done last minute than if you planned ahead. And don't forget that if you're getting something printed, the printer will take maybe 2 or 3 days to get that thing printed and delivered, depending on size, the quantity, or that kind of thing. And the other thing is, if there is time-sensitive content, make sure that you get it to the designer and out in the public arena before the deadline. I was once given a piece, this is 7 years ago now, for an offer, and I was given the material to design after the offer had actually technically closed. Now, again, that's a silly thing, but people don't, we all don't take this into account. So please don't leave things to the last minute. Try to plan it in advance, especially if content needs writing, resources need printing. And this is where actually having a cohesive marketing strategy really helps, because it aids that forward planning, that budgeting. So we know we've got a show in April, therefore we need to have the stuff kind of being written in January, to get it designed in February, to get it signed off and printed in March, and they are then ready to go without any fuss come April. I work for a small hotel chain, and they get all their Christmas stuff printed, or designed and printed and delivered to the hotel by the middle of February for the following year. because that's really important that they are that well advanced, because come the middle of the summer, they're getting that stuff out onto tables in the hotel. So that again, that's kind of extreme case of forward planning, but try to plan and get it written down, get it in your strategy, and that's kind of really important. And then finally, kind of where, this is often something that people don't really think about too much. But where does this piece need to go to? I.e., what's the delivery method? Is it being printed and then handed out at a networking meeting, or is it being mailed? Well, if it's being mailed, you might want to think about a smaller design because it's more cost effective to mail. Is it being emailed out? Therefore, it doesn't necessarily need to have the high resolution stuff that kind of print does. So it can be emailed out. Is it going on social media? Therefore, it needs to be a certain size and a certain kind of dimensions. Is it going to go on a website and therefore download it, or actually just kind of click through on a page? So how is this piece of information going to get into people's hands in the first place? Where does it need to go to? Long story short, a piece of design will be heavily influenced by the method of delivery. So it's really important to think, actually, you know what, I only want this thing emailed. I don't need it printing. Okay, that's great. Then we can design to that. It will still look the same, whether it was designed for print or for email, maybe. But actually, there are other things that I can take into consideration to make it more effective and better for emailing out rather than for printing. So yeah, I've just kind of said that. I keep forgetting I've got these little summary sheets. And that's pretty much it. So there are 6 elements. So there's, if I could go why, what do you want? You know, why do you want this piece of marketing? Who's it aimed at? Think about your target audience. How are you going to say it in terms of the words, the images, and the design? And that's where the designers particularly come into their own. What is your call to action? Give people something to do with the information you're giving them. When does it need to be designed and delivered and into your hands by? And then where? What is it? You know, where does it need to go? What is the delivery method of all of this, you know, information and this stuff? So as you can see, there's so much more to designing a 2-page A5 flyer than actually just sitting down and putting some words and images in a pretty, you know, in a pretty way on the page. And that's, I guess, one of the reasons why it's really important to work with a good designer or marketing consultant or marketing agency who can help you think through these things, because you will reap the benefits of the bigger impact of those pieces because they will be more on point. So I hope that helps. I don't know if there are any questions, but I'm happy to answer any that do. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much, Stu. Yeah, you've got a few questions already waiting for you. The first one is from James, and he asks, I've got Microsoft Publisher already on my machine. Why should I pay for someone to do something that I can try and do myself?
Okay, I guess there's 2 things. 2 or 3 things that kind of spring to mind. One is about, is designing that thing the best use of your time? So whatever it might be that you do, is taking, you know, 3 or 4 hours out to actually produce something like that a really good use of your time? Why not work with someone who is good at that to allow them to do what they're good at, so you can carry on running your business and doing the thing that you're good at? I guess it's also a level of skill and the right tools for the job. So actually, if you produce something in Publisher and then hand it on to a printer, they may not be able to work with it properly because it may be in the wrong format. It may well not have bleeds or crop marks or all the kind of things that printers need to print something properly. I recently did a revamp of a flyer for an NLP coach, and she kind of done her own thing. It was a sort of a 6-page DL, so kind of went in one of those long thin envelopes, and we just rewrote the content and we redesigned it. And I got this comment on LinkedIn 2 days later going, "Thank you, Sue, for this. Great. I've already had more feedback and work off this one than I did using my one." And it's just the impact of working with someone who's good at what they do. Just like you would hope that people would want to work with you because you're good at what you do. If you do want to do it, you know, and there's no problem, if you've got the skills and you've got the time, then also think about Google Images. Don't use Google Images, because it just don't. There's a really good free stock site out there called Pexels, Pexels, and their range isn't great. If you need really good quality free stock imagery, then Pexels isn't a bad place to start. So if you are going to do it yourself, then that's great, but why not work with someone who can actually do it better, maybe?
Great, thank you. We have another question, and this one's from Edward, and he says, thank you very much for going through all those points. I don't think I know the answers to every single one. How can you help me with my flyer?
Okay, well, I think that's where working with a designer or a design agency or someone comes into play, because I don't expect my clients to have all the answers to these things. So my job, as I said right at the start, is almost more of a navigator, almost more of a coach. I really hate using that word because I'm not a coach. I do some consultancy based on just the huge amounts of 20 plus years of marketing and design experience that I've got. So while I wouldn't expect someone to have the answers, what I hope this webinar will have done is stir some of those questions up in you for you to think about. So if you then did brief a designer, you're kind of on that journey. Because this stuff comes really naturally to me. I think about it all the time, and I sometimes forget that people don't think the way I do, and I have to kind of caution myself against that. So I would just say that actually, if you're unsure of stuff, talk to someone who will help you through that and give you the answers that you need in order to then go, okay, that's right, I've got the information, I can now go away and think about what it is I actually need and why I need it, and we'll address the situation in 2 or 3 weeks when I've got my head around it. So use people's experience, knowledge and expertise or specialisms to help you do that. I don't know if that answers the question, but I hope it makes sense anyway.
No, that's great, thank you very much. We've got another question, and this one is from George. I recently sent off a flyer to one of these online print websites, but I had a message saying that it couldn't be printed because the colours and the resolutions were wrong and they needed to be CYMK. What do they mean? My designer did a flyer for my emails and that looked okay. Can you help?
Okay. Yes, and yes. So, okay. Print email websites are fine. I've used them when I first, the very first print job I ever commissioned as a designer was my own business cards, and I just used a website because I didn't know a good printer at the time. I know several now, and that's great. But you need to have what we call print-ready artwork. So it's much higher resolution, so it's 300 dots per inch, as opposed to screen resolution, which is 72 dots per inch. The piece will be in print colours, so that's cyan, magenta, yellow and black, or key, CMYK, as opposed to screen colours, which is RGB, red, green and blue. Then also the piece will actually then have crop marks and print marks. So when the printer trims that work, they're actually trimming it to size and they're kind of cutting off 3 millimeters each way. So you design it basically 3 millimeters bigger than it needs to be. So I think it's a case of your design is like for an email. So you would have designed it 70 dpi, very low resolution, because you don't want to clog up people's inboxes, and they would have used RGB colors because that's right for screens. Getting it printed needs to be much higher resolution, in a different ink set, effectively a different color range. Even though the colors may look the same, it's just the way it all separates out. It's technical print stuff, and therefore I'm not surprised they rejected it. And I guess actually, if you'd gone to a printer, if you knew the printer, they would sit down with you and go, okay, this is why this isn't good. Kick this back to your designer, who will actually get you a proper high-res CMYK version. It would have taken your designer 2 or 3 minutes to do, and then actually you then got the right piece, then send off to your printer. So again, it's just that's kind of what I'm talking about, actually, where is it being delivered to, in terms of is it being emailed out, printed, because actually there are fundamental things that will design differently. The foundations will be in design if I know if it's been printed or emailed. What I always do, I try to do, is do a version for print and a version for email or web, just because it's easier. There's a really quick button that I can press that actually converts one into the other, and it's great. So just have a think about that. I think that's really, really kind of focus on the where is it being in, the delivery method. Any other questions?
Yeah, you've got another one from Andy, and he says, if it is a social media post, what is the sensible approach, timescale wise, to regularly posting content?
Okay, great, really good question. In terms of 2 or 3 questions I've got actually off the back of that, really. One, are you writing the content and have you got the images to hand? Because if you do, and you are, then actually you can schedule the post in something like Hootsuite, or there's no one social sort of scheduling software pretty quickly. But actually, if you've got to brief a designer, I would probably say give the content writer probably a good week to kind of get their head around the content. There may need to be some amends, kind of get it signed off, then put it into the system, and then kind of getting it scheduled out. So that kind of depends on whether you've got that information to hand that you're going to bang out something quite quickly, or it needs to be part of a campaign. Because there's 2 types of social media. There's the stuff that you can kind of respond to on the fly. So Twitter and Facebook posts that just, oh, this has happened, we can like celebrate this new release or something. And that will be outside of your scheduled posts. So what I do, if I'm scheduling stuff, whether it's blogs or social media, I try to batch write, because I like writing my own content, partly because I just write words, because you hadn't noticed. And so I will batch write, so everything has the same kind of feel to it. So I might sit and kind of write 6 months of blog posts at a time, because then I can schedule them all in and they're done. And that's 6 months of work done in maybe a couple of days, and everything sounds and feels the same. But if you're working with outside designers or content writers, then obviously you need time to brief them, they need time to write it and all that kind of stuff. So I'd say give it at least a week. Other content writers may well need more time than that, depending on how much there is to say. Andy, I don't know if that helps, but if not, let me know. And so my number's on the screen, so if you want to just drop me a line and we can have a chat, and I can maybe help you further, then that'd be great.
Perfect. Thank you again, Stu, for presenting today's webinar.
Pleasure.
I will be sending out a copy of this presentation, which includes Stu's contact details, out to you all very shortly. So please do email him direct if you have any further questions.
Absolutely.
But before we close, just a quick reminder, if you would like to keep up to date on our latest webinars, please make sure you follow us on SlideShare or subscribe to our YouTube channel. And you can also access all of our resources for business owners by downloading our BizSmart app. That's the end of today's webinar. Thanks again, Stu, and we hope you can join us again very soon.